Imagine for a second that you're standing in a dusty, sun-baked town square.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Right, so the year is 1492. And you have lived in this country your entire life. Like, you know the streets, you know the smells of the local bakeries, the merchants.
It's home.
Exactly, it's home. Your parents lived here and their parents before them, tracing a lineage back centuries. But today, the world you know is just, it's ending.
Yeah, abruptly ending.
Right. A royal decree is nailed to the church door, and you are basically handed an absolutely impossible choice. You can convert to a religion you fundamentally do not believe in, abandon your home and everything you own to flee across hostile borders, or, face the terrifying, very real fires of the Inquisition.
I mean, it is a genuinely unfathomable ultimatum. When we study history, it's so easy to just kind of glaze over dates and edicts.
Oh, for sure, just words on a page.
Right, but this was a catastrophic ground-level reality for the Jewish population in Spain. You had mere months to liquidate your entire life or basically surrender your soul.
Yeah. And welcome back to part 2 of our deep dive into the hidden world of Sephardic history. Today, we're looking at the thousands of individuals who looked at that impossible choice, and they chose a dangerous, quiet third path.
A very dangerous path.
Incredibly dangerous. We are talking about outward conversion. So, swearing fealty to the cross in public while keeping their true heritage, their faith, and their ancient identity alive right under the floorboards of their homes.
And our primary source for this deep dive is a truly fascinating excerpt titled The Secret Code of Sephardic Surnames.
Yes, such a good read.
It really is. And we're going to trace a survival tactic here that is nothing short of brilliant.
Yeah, the mission today is to explore how Portuguese Cryptojews used steganography to survive. And for anyone unfamiliar with the term, steganography is the art of hiding secret messages in plain sight.
Right, which is different from cryptography.
Exactly. Cryptography is where you, scramble a message so no one can read it without a key. Steganography is hiding the fact that a secret even exists at all.
And that distinction is just crucial here. We aren't talking about writing things in invisible ink or whispering in dark alleys.
Or hiding ancient scrolls in caves, right?
Right. We are talking about linguistic survival. These families hid their deepest truths out in the open, printed on legal documents, signed on shipping manifests.
Where the Inquisition's authorities looked at them every single day.
Every single day, and they saw absolutely nothing out of the ordinary.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because adopting a new surname in this context wasn't just wearing a disguise. It wasn't putting on a fake mustache to slip past a guard.
Right, not quite that simple.
No, it was engineering a linguistic cloaking device. The goal was to become completely invisible to the heavily armed investigators who were literally walking right past you in the street.
Total assimilation was their armor. And we really have to establish this foundational strategy, which was basically invented during the terror in Spain, before we can track how it evolved into a highly complex network later on.
Right, because it starts simple and gets wild later.
Exactly. So the Holy Office of the Inquisition believed that by forcing Jewish populations to take old Christian surnames at the baptismal font, they were wiping out Jewish identity entirely.
Like a hard reset.
Yeah, sever the root, clean slate,
Yeah.
no more tribal affiliations, no more ancient lineages, just gone.
The Sephardim, however, were absolute masters of survival. They understood the assignment perfectly.
They really did.
So they discarded their highly recognizable ancestral Hebrew names and purposely adopted the most incredibly common, unremarkable Spanish surnames available.
They locked their identity in a safe.
Yeah.
And the key to that safe was total, uncompromising discretion.
Yeah.
A perfect example from the source material is the surname Ortiz.
Ortiz, extremely common, right?
Exactly. On the surface, Ortiz sounds quintessentially Spanish. To a 15th century parish priest taking the census, you couldn't pick a more standard, unsuspecting, boringly normal name.
Right. It raises zero red flags, just another guy named Ortiz.
But according to modern genealogy researchers and popular crypto-Jewish folklore, Ortiz actually carries a massive hidden dual meaning. The source interprets it as a Hebrew Notericon.
Okay, and just to clarify for everyone listening, a Notericon is it's a deeply traditional method of creating reverse acronyms.
Right, used a lot in ancient Jewish texts, especially the Talmud.
Yeah. It's a way of compressing a really complex theological idea into a single memorable word by taking the first letters of a phrase.
So, hidden inside the letters of this incredibly common, everyday Spanish name, O-R-T-I-Z, the Hebrew acronym, or Torah, YHWH chain, is concealed.
Wow.
Yeah. And translated, that roughly means the light of the Torah of God is life.
That is just, it's brilliant.
It is, but this raises an important question, because while that wordplay is undeniably brilliant, we have to remember that the primary overriding strategy was camouflage.
Right, staying invisible.
Blending into the local landscape was what physically kept them alive. The Inquisition was ruthless. We're talking about a sophisticated secret police force that utilized torture, informants, public executions.
Yeah, and I actually have to push back on this a little bit, though, because if blending in completely was the ultimate goal, like if survival was the only thing that mattered, wasn't hiding a secret religious acronym inside your everyday name a totally unnecessary risk?
How do you mean?
Well, it feels a bit like painting a bright red bullseye on the inside of your camouflage jacket. If an inquisitor happens to, figure out the code, you are literally wearing the evidence of your heresy. Why even take the chance?
You make a fair point about the physical risk, absolutely.
Yeah.
But you have to look at the psychological toll of forced conversion.
The trauma of it.
Right. Imagine having your entire identity, your family history, your connection to the divine, forcibly stripped away by the state. If you completely erase who you are, the Inquisition wins.
Oh, I see. So the secret name is like an act of internal rebellion.
Exactly. That internal bullseye wasn't designed to taunt the Inquisitor. It was a psychological anchor for the family. It was a way to whisper to themselves and to their children in the dark, we remember who we are, even if the world thinks we are someone else. They desperately needed a way to preserve their heritage behind tightly closed doors.
An internal anchor. That makes a lot of sense. The sheer trauma of pretending to be someone else every minute of the day. I mean, that would be crushing without some tether to the truth.
It would break you.
Yeah. And the sources provide a really incredible live case study of this that moves us from the theoretical realm into actual practice. The author of the text breaks down a real lineage, dissecting a specific, historically recorded, full name.
Yes, the Mateo example.
Right. The name is Mateo, Aben, Garcia, y Martinez de Matos.
And this breakdown is just a stunning look at how deeply encoded these names could be when you string them together. To a Spanish colonial official, that name just sounds like a man with a lot of prominent relatives.
Just a very long, very Spanish name.
Right. But when you strip away the Spanish armor, the precise linguistic and conceptual roots reveal an incredible ancestral declaration.
Okay, walk us through how this actually works, because the underlying mechanics of it are wild. Let's start with the first name, Mateo.
Okay, so conceptually, Mateo is the Spanish equivalent of the Hebrew name Matichahu.
Which means gift of God.
Exactly. So by choosing Mateo, the family honors the ancestral meaning without using the forbidden Hebrew language. Next, we have Aben, which is a classic Sephardic prefix meaning son of.
Okay. A direct holdover from their ancient naming structures.
Right. So far we have son of the gift of God. But the next piece is where the true steganography kicks in, the name Garcia.
Because Garcia is like one of the most ubiquitous surnames in the Iberian Peninsula.
Oh, totally everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But linguistically, Garcia actually has Basque origins that are widely believed to mean bear.
Okay, a bear.
And in the hidden world of Cryptojudaism, this maps perfectly to the Hebrew word dove, which also means bear.
Ah, I see.
Right. The bear is a powerful ancient symbol of strength and endurance in Jewish tradition. So families who belong to a lineage associated with that symbol simply adopted the local legal translation of their totem.
So the authorities see a super common Basque name, but the family sees the ancient bear. Okay, next in the lineage is Martinez. Again, a totally standard Spanish name. How does this one map to a hidden concept?
So Martinez derives from Martin, which roots back to Mars, the Roman god of war.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it conveys defense, fortification, martial strength. To the crypto-Jew mind, this conceptualizes the Hebrew word gedor.
Which means wall or fence builder, right?
You got it. And in Jewish tradition, building a fence around the Torah means protecting the laws and the lineage from outside corruption.
And finally, we cap it off with de Matos.
Right, and this one is a phonetic masterclass. De Matos perfectly echoes the sound of the Hebrew word matot, meaning staffs or tribes.
Oh, wow. Okay, so let's string their entire completely legal Spanish name together.
Let's hear it.
The hidden ancestral declaration actually reads, Mateo, son of the house of the bear, fortified by the wall, belonging to the ancient tribes of Israel.
It's just staggering.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because it reminds me of zipping a massive computer file.
I like that analogy.
Right, like you have this huge, complex, vital document, an entire family's spiritual and historical legacy, and you basically compress it into a tiny, unassuming little folder on your desktop.
Right.
Anyone walking by just sees a boring file icon named taxes.
Or Mateo.
Exactly. But inside, waiting to be unzipped, is this massive, rich database of a family's entire history.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. And what the source material reveals is that the encoding wasn't just conceptual, it was deeply mathematical.
Which blew my mind.
Yeah. In Jewish mysticism, there is an ancient analytical system called Gematria.
So explain how that math actually works in practice, because I think it's a concept a lot of people have maybe heard of, but they don't quite grasp the actual mechanics of it.
Sure. So in the Hebrew alphabet, there are no separate numbers.
No 1, 2, 3.
Right. Every single letter also serves as a numerical value. Aleph is 1, Bet is 2, and so on.
Okay, got it.
Because of this, every single word or phrase in Hebrew intrinsically has a mathematical sum. Let's say you take a grand ancestral statement, like the hidden meaning of Mateo's name, and you add up the value of all the Hebrew letters.
Right.
Suppose the total sum is 861. In Gematria, you often reduce that down to a single digit to find its core essence.
By adding the digits together.
Exactly. So 8 plus 6 plus 1 equals 15, then 1 plus 5 equals 6.
So the entire incredibly complex name reduces down to just the number 6.
Yep.
But, I mean, why go through all that trouble? What does having a core number actually achieve for a family living in hiding?
Because in this mystical tradition, reducing a phrase down to its absolute core number reveals its essential energy. It represents the spiritual DNA or the foundational vibration of that lineage.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So for family hiding across centuries and oceans, knowing that reduced number was proof that no matter how deep you bury the root, no matter how many Spanish masks you wear, the mathematical essence of your bloodline remains entirely unchanged.
It's proof that you're still you.
Exactly. It's not just a clever math trick. It's a testament to spiritual endurance.
It's literally a mathematical heartbeat encoded into the syllables of the name. It's brilliant.
Truly.
So we've seen how they used concepts like the bear or the wall and how they used mathematics. But what if you wanted to hide the literal sound of your ancestors' language?
Ah, the phonetic shields.
Right. The source actually breaks down how phonetic shields worked in daily medieval life. Let's look at the name Alvarez.
So to the Spanish authorities, Alvarez is just a simple patronymic surname.
It literally just means son of Alvaro, right?
Yeah, it's entirely unremarkable.
But the phonetic shield is where the genius lies. The letters ALV mirror the ancient root of alia, which means to ascend to the altar, or El, meaning God.
Right. And more practically, it simply allowed families to keep the initial sound of their ancient Iberian Jewish names. Names like Alva or Avila, while wearing that heavy armor of a classic Spanish name.
So you're preserving the literal sound of your ancestors in your mouth every time you introduce yourself to the baker.
Exactly. It's acoustic preservation. Another powerful example from the text is Iscar.
Spelled with a Y or an I.
Yes. To the Inquisition census takers, this was just a regional toponym. It pointed to the town of Iscar in the province of Valladolid.
Right, so an official would see the paperwork and think, oh, your family hails from that specific town. Excellent.
Move along, next family.
But they just took a town name that sounded exactly like their ancient Hebrew tribe. To the Cryptojews, keeping Iscar on a legal document was a literal phonetic preservation of the ancient tribe of Issachar.
It's hiding right out in the open.
And then there's de la Calle, which translates to of the street.
Yeah, the source explains this as an environmental name.
Right. Because when forced to convert at the baptismal font, many families were basically randomly assigned or hastily chose names from nature.
Like Rios for rivers or Rosa for rose, or they took location names.
But de la Calle has a very specific, heartbreaking historical context. Because before 1492, Jewish life in Spain was centralized in the medieval Juderias.
Or Jewish quarters.
The Jewish quarters, exactly. And daily life in these walled neighborhoods was entirely organized around the central street of the community.
Yeah.
That street was the economic, social, and spiritual artery of their world, and they were violently forced to abandon it.
What's fascinating here is how these names operated on two completely different frequencies simultaneously.
What do you mean by frequencies?
Well, one frequency was for the parish priest. He hears de la Calle and writes it down, completely satisfied that it's just a reference to a physical address, just an old Christian name.
Okay, right.
The other frequency was exclusively for the family. It was a quiet, sentimental nod to the literal geography of the home they were exiled from.
Oh, that's heavy. Just put yourself in their shoes for a second. Imagine being violently forced out of the home you grew up in, watching the life you built get stripped away.
Yeah.
And the only way you can legally hold on to the memory of your childhood street without being, executed is to literally change your legal surname to of the street, just to keep a piece of it with you
Yeah.
forever.
It's devastating, but it's also an act of incredible defiance.
Defiance through memory.
Exactly, defiance through memory. But as the timeline of history moves forward, this system of survival couldn't remain static. It had to adapt to new, even more complex threats.
Right, because the story certainly doesn't stay in Spain. The source material moves our timeline forward to 1497.
Right, when the Inquisition tightened its grip on neighboring Portugal.
Which is where many Spanish Jews had originally fled in 1492.
Yes. The new Christians of Portugal, who were often known as Os-Portugueses in the colonies, they realized that the Iberian Peninsula as a whole was no longer survivable.
The net was closing in.
The net was absolutely closing. So they fled again. They leveraged their networks to become the ultimate seafaring merchants of the New World. They crossed the Atlantic and landed in Caribbean trading ports.
Specifically setting up operations in places like Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
And this is where the cloaking device gets a massive upgrade, because the environment totally changed.
Oh, radically different.
They went from isolated villages in Spain to the bustling, humid, chaotic Caribbean ports of the 1500s. And the system evolved.
Oh, so?
Well, they went from passively hiding their names from the church to using their names as an active system of steganography to secretly signal other merchants.
Yes. Because in Spain, the goal was isolation and invisibility. Survive the census, keep your head down.
Right.
But in the Caribbean, you have merchants trying to rebuild massive intercontinental trade networks.
They are dealing with ship captains, cargo manifests, local colonial governors. They need allies.
They need business partners they can trust implicitly.
It's like a modern two-factor authentication or, a high-stakes secret handshake.
I love that comparison.
Right, because if you were standing on a crowded shipping dock in San Juan in the 16th century, surrounded by royal guards and Catholic authorities looming over the cargo crates, how do you find an ally?
You certainly can't just walk up to a fellow merchant and ask, "Hey, are you secretly Jewish?"
No. An Inquisition informant could be standing 3 feet away, and asking that question is a literal death sentence.
You solve the problem through highly specialized naming rituals. The Portuguese Cryptojews in the Caribbean used 2 very specific methods to identify each other through the noise of the port.
And the first method was the matronymic lineage. Now, in traditional Spanish and Portuguese colonial culture, how do surnames usually work on official paperwork?
Well, it's heavily patriarchal. Usually the paternal surname comes first and holds the dominant position, followed by the maternal surname.
But the source notes that Portuguese Cryptojews operating in the Caribbean would deliberately flip that order on their shipping manifests and legal documents. Or they would rely completely on the mother's maiden name to trace their lineage.
Right.
Why would they do that? What's the signal?
The hidden signal here is profound. This practice quietly aligned with traditional halakha, or Jewish law.
Okay, and halakha dictates what?
It dictates that Jewish identity is traced maternally, through the mother, not the father. By emphasizing the matronymic line, they were honoring Jewish law right out in the open on public records.
Wow. And to the Spanish colonial authorities checking the cargo crates, it just looked like a weird Portuguese quirk.
Or just a clerical error. The authorities didn't care. But to the underground network on the docks, seeing a merchant prioritize his mother's lineage was a massive green light.
That is so incredibly smart. It's a cultural dog whistle.
Exactly.
And the second method the source details is the use of double surnames.
Yes, using a very specific paired formatting. They would combine 2 distinct Portuguese converso names into one hyphenated or linked surname. The source uses the historical examples of Lopes Cardozo or Teixeira Fonseca.
So explain how this functioned as a secret signal. Why did the secret network know what this meant while the heavily armed authorities remained completely oblivious?
Well, to a Spanish colonial official, Teixeira and Fonseca are just the names of wealthy Portuguese families. They assume it's just a business merger or, an elite colonial marriage.
Just rich people doing rich people things.
Right, exactly. But the crypto-Jewish network was incredibly tight-knit. They kept meticulous mental ledgers of which specific families from which specific towns back in Portugal were forcibly converted.
So they basically memorized the rosters.
Yes, they knew the lineages. So seeing those 2 very specific converso names paired together was mathematical proof of belonging.
Oh, I see.
It's silently communicated. My parents were both conversos. They ensured I married within the hidden faith, and our lineage is intact.
So a merchant rolls into port in Santo Domingo. The local customs officer checks the paperwork, sees Teixeira Fonseca, stamps the cargo, and says, "Welcome, wealthy Portuguese merchant."
Yep, completely blind to it.
But to the secret network operating the cranes and the ledgers, seeing that name was a silent, blaring siren that meant, "You can trust me with your cargo, and you can trust me with your life. I am one of you."
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the brilliance of this steganography in the Caribbean is that their camouflage was almost too good.
How do you mean?
They survived by blending in so perfectly and building such robust economic networks that they didn't just hide in the Caribbean. They actually became part of the foundational cultural and economic fabric of the islands.
So what does this all mean? Why does a deep dive into 16th century naming conventions matter today to, a modern listener?
Because it's still here.
Right. It matters because the proof of this incredible history is literally sitting in the modern phone books of San Juan and Santo Domingo right now. Today. Those names, those exact encoded double surnames, the echoes of the bear in the wall, are still there.
It's amazing.
Families are walking around today carrying these histories, and they might not even know the incredible, death-defying survival mechanisms their ancestors built into the very syllables they speak every time they introduce themselves.
It really transforms a phone book into a living archive. Surnames aren't just random historical labels or bureaucratic tags we inherit. They are architectural blueprints.
Blueprints of survival.
Yes, of profound resilience. Carefully and intentionally chosen by ancestors who absolutely refuse to be erased from the earth.
It's mind-blowing when you really sit back and think about the layers of history resting right beneath our modern surface.
It completely changes how you view a simple introduction. The next time you state your own name, remember the hidden resilience that might be anchored in your own history. There is so much invisible struggle and triumph resting inside the names we hear every single day.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up this deep dive into the secret codes of Sephardic survival, I want to leave you with one final lingering thought, a little something to mull over on your own as you go about your day.
Always good to have something to chew on.
Definitely. We've spent this time talking about how people in the 15th and 16th centuries encoded their faith, their deepest identity, and their family history into their legal surnames just to survive an oppressive regime. But what if that happened now?
Ooh, modern day.
Yeah. If you had to face an inquisition today, and you were forced to encode your most deeply held belief, your true identity, or your family's legacy into a mundane, everyday username or a digital handle just to pass it down to your descendants, what ordinary word would you choose as your cloak?
That is a deeply fascinating question to consider.
Something to think about the next time you fill out a profile online. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.